Can we go over like the most recent no reassignment?
Okay, so like the 45, 45, 90, the 9-3 and 9-4, or just the 9-4?
Like the 9-3 and 9-4, just to like refresh.
Okay, so what we'll do is, I'll do these two. Remember that you can go into the YouTube channel, and you'll be able to see all of the work that I did with all of these problems, just in case you need help on any of those. So I'll go ahead and I'll do these two, and then I'll go ahead and make up a couple other ones that'll go with the other no reassignment, and then we'll go from there. That sound good?
Yeah, that sounds really good. Thank you.
Yep. All right, I muted you only because I can hear myself echo, and I apologize if I'm as loud as I am on your computer as you are when I hear it through you, you know what I mean? Because, yeah, that's a lot of Caffarel, sorry. Um, so in this problem, this is number 9 from the 9-3 Knowre, and it does say find the other two missing sides. So right away, what I want to pay attention to is where the angles are. So whether this is our 45, 45, 90, so our isosceles right triangles, which is 45, 45, 90, or if it's our 30, 60, 90, doesn't matter. Our first step is always look at the angle, identify which triangle it is, so we know it's this one. And then opposite the angle, we put our formulas. So opposite the 45 is A, opposite the 45 is A, and opposite the 90 is A radical 2. So that's the formula I want to put around the picture. The side that has the formula and the value, we're going to set equal to each other. And one of the things that I should stress is notice every time I do this, I purposely circle it so that I remember not to forget to set them equal to each other. So it's just little steps, that the physical steps that help me remember. So then over here, I know this side is going to have to be radical 7. See, that's why I circled it. I circled it so that I could go back and remember that that's a 7, not a 2. So radical 7, and now everywhere I see an A, I'm going to plug in radical 7. So that means over here, I'm going to plug in radical 7, and I'm going to still have that radical 2 there. Because they're both under a radical, I can multiply them and keep them under the radical, and it's 14. So that means when I'm in the Knowre section, I'm going to plug in radical 14 here. And for SV, I'm going to plug in radical 7. So the steps, write your formula, circle the side with the formula and the value, set them equal to each other, correctly, of course, and then plug that back in. A lot of times what this comes down to is a lot of people are able to just look at it and and see what happens. They don't have to do all of the work, and that's like lots of years in advance, forward. But I suggest writing everything down. So then when we get to a question like number 10, which was right after it, everything in the directions told me what I'm supposed to do. Now they did provide the picture. So if you get to number 10, it's going to tell you that it's a right isosceles triangle. First thing, you can see that it's isosceles with the tick marks on the sides. You can see that it's right. But what we also have to remember is that makes these angles the same. And if the angles are the same, they're both 45. So now what I want to do is, again, I want to remember that I need to, if I want to determine the lengths of the legs, I need to fill my formula in all the way around. So let's just say we don't recognize what this is. But I am going to do it exactly the same way that we did up here. I'm caught up in this whole opposite the 45 is A, opposite the 45 is A, opposite the 90 is A radical 2. I'm told circle the side with the value and the formula and then set them equal to each other. So we're still doing all of those same steps, but you probably can already guess what A is going to be. When we divide away that radical 2 like we have been told to do, they're going to cancel on both sides. So what we're left with is essentially what the problem was hoping for, is that everywhere we see an A, we're going to plug in D. So on this side, it's going to be D, and on this side, it's going to be D. So in the box that Knowre has asked us to fill in, it's going to tell us RA and NA. And it's going to ask us to fill in that. And you are going to plug in the letter as the answer. And in order to make sure that I wasn't wrong, I did the problem, and that's exactly what they're looking for. So it's not a trick question. It's honestly a question that says, do you recognize the formula? Because remember I said at the beginning, it doesn't have to be A, and A radical 2. It could be X, X, and X radical 2. M, and M radical 2. Well, here, D, and D radical 2. So what is supposed to be noticed is that it still holds the pattern. So it's possible for you to not even have to worry about doing all the work. You saw that the pattern existed, that it was across the correct angle, and then you know that it's supposed to be D. So let's look at one more example with our isosceles right triangles. And what I have typically found is an issue is, again, the radicals. All right, so we're going to solve for the missing sides. We're going to go ahead and we're going to give our isosceles, oh, my poor marker's running out, our isosceles triangle situation. And let's go ahead and say that this side is actually 10 radical 7. And that is ugly, because it's not 10 radical 2. If it would have been a radical 2, we'd been like, yay, I know what the sides are because it fits the pattern. So I'm going to go through all the steps. So I'm going to go opposite the 45 is A, opposite the 45 is A, opposite the 90 is A radical 2. And it is true that we have now our formula and the value, and we're going to set them equal to each other. And so the steps aren't any different. We're going to go ahead and take A radical 2 is equal to 10 radical 7. And just like before, we're going to go ahead and we're going to divide away the radical 2. And when we do that, what we're left with is A equals 10 radical 7 divided by radical 2. And we cannot leave that radical in the denominator. So that means I have to rationalize, which means we're going to multiply top and bottom by that radical 2, so that we end up with 10 radical 7 radical 2 over radical 4. If you look closely, it still holds the pattern, even though it kind of gets lost in this whole 10 radical 7. When we rationalize, it's whatever the numerator was, the denominator shows up in the numerator, and just the numbers underneath. So notice how this guy is now over here, and without the radical sign is there. So what we end up with now when we simplify is A equals 10 radical 14 over 2. So the hardest thing here is not put the formula. It's not circle and set equal to each other. We've done that. We know to divide away. The part that we have to at least kind of work our way through now is rationalizing. So this we have to remember is our rationalizing. And we can't stop here. We have to remember to simplify. And I wish I'm the one who made all these rules, because, you know, I'd say it's okay. It's not okay. We have to simplify for our final answer. So when we finally simplify, the 10 and the 2 are without a radical. So that means I can take 10 divided by 2. And we end up with 5 radical 14. So that means the two missing sides, the two congruent legs, are 5 radical 14. And that's each of these sides. So whatever we found A to be, that's over here, 5 radical 14, 5 radical 14. So when you look at each one of these, we started this one with A radical 2. Even though we saw the pattern was here and was correct, just in case, A radical 2. Each time we circle the side with the value and the formula, and each time we set them equal to each other. The tough part is slowing down and making sure that we do the rationalizing correctly. Now, you did say you wanted to take a look at some of our Knowre questions from 9-4. I do want to remind you that already stored, and I'm going to bring this up real quick, already stored at the YouTube channel are 8 questions that I took straight from the 9-4 Knowre section. So each of these are problems directly off of that. So I didn't make these up. I looked at the screen, copied everything that was in blue, and then you can see that each time I have my formula written. So all 8 of these, when you go to Google Classroom, you'll see that I already put those in there on Monday. And this was our YouTube video that's in my YouTube channel. That's already there. So because Siona, you asked to take a look at a few more, let's go ahead and let's just talk about let's solve for AB and BC. If now the triangle looks like this. Now this time I change the angle measure. And I'm going to say that this is 18 meters. So we're no longer using A and A radical 2. Our formula changes because our triangle changes. This time we're dealing with, if that's 60, this guy's got to be 30. So the trick is find the angle. If it's angle C, the side opposite it are the other 2 letters of the triangle, AB. So if I'm at C, its opposite side is AB. Opposite the 30-degree angle is 1 of something. So we said 1A. Opposite our 60-degree angle will be that A radical 3. And opposite the 90 will be our 2A. Again, every time I put a formula, I make sure I look to see what its opposite. Side with the value and the formula, we will set equal to each other. So 2A equals 18, which means A equals 9. So everywhere I see an A, I'm going to plug in 9. So over here, I plug in 9. Over here, I plug in 9. And that's it. So when we ask in our Knowre section, what's AB and what's BC, do all of the work around the triangle first. And then when we answer the question, AB is 9, BC is 9 radical 3. And do not use decimals because it's not going to, it won't accept it as the answer. So keep that in mind. Let's look at one more for the 60 degree, the 30, 60, 90. We said that the hardest part is our radicals, but I'm hoping you can take note that every time I start a problem, I label the formula first. I circle the side that has the formula and the value. I set them equal to each other and I solve. And then I plug it back in. So last, here's our 30-degree angle. Let's say W, X, Y. And we're going to find WX and we're going to find WY. And I'm going to tell you that this side is 14 meters. All right. So first step, formula. All right, so let's figure out what triangle it is. I have a 90, I have a 30, so no way around it. That guy's got to be 60. That means opposite the 30 is A, opposite the 60 is A radical 3, opposite the 90 is 2A. So first step, what kind of triangle? Second step, write the formula down. Third step, the side with the value and the formula we're going to set equal to each other. And I solve. So when we solve, we're going to divide both sides. They'll cancel here. And we are left with A equals 14 over radical 3. Now, Siona, I'm going to unmute you. Do I leave it like that?
No.
Good. Do you know what I have to do to get that out of there?
You multiply the 14 by the radical 3?
Good. We're going to multiply top and bottom by that radical 3. Good. And now we're going to multiply straight across, and we end up with 14 radical 3 because they're not the same. 14 is not under a radical, so they have to just go next to each other. Under here, aren't they both under the radical?
Yeah, they are.
Okay, so what's 3 times 3?
9.
Good. And what's the square root of 9?
For finding square root, is that like multiplying?
No, remember, and if you can look at my screen, remember it's trying to figure out what times itself got that number. So if I don't see it, notice how something times itself got that number. So what do you think, what times itself got me 9?
3 times 3 got you 9.
Right. So when we write our final answer, it's just the 3 at the bottom because the square root of 9 is 3. And the top is 14 radical 3. So you did the hard part. You were like, okay, I got to get it out of here. So we're going to multiply by that radical 3. Notice in my final part here, didn't the radical show up on top?
Yeah.
It was on the bottom, and now it's on top. And do you see what's on the bottom? Isn't that just the number that's inside?
Yeah.
Every time we rationalize, that pattern will hold. Only thing I got to double check is 14. It's not divisible by 3, so we're going to leave that answer as is. So our final answer for A is going to look like that. So I go back to my problem and I look to see where I have an A. That's over here. So this side is 14 radical 3 over 3. Over here I have an A. Well, it's 2 times 14 radical 3 over 3. Again, I can only put together like terms. What's 2 times 14? It's going to be 28. So we're left with WY is that value. So if I was doing this in Knowre, I would plug in for WY that number, 28 radical 3 over 3. And for WX, I'm going to go ahead and plug in that number. And let's see here for a second, because I do want to show you something real quick. I don't know if it's going to let me. All right, next. Of course. So what are you looking at right now, Siona? Are you still looking at my handwritten copy?
Yeah, I still see your handwritten copy.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually take you to the no reassignment that you would be looking at so that you can remember how to plug all this in when you're doing it. And I'll take you right into the 9-4 section, that 30, 60, 90. And let's see here. All right, can I ask what you're looking at now?
I still see your handwritten copy.
You do? Okay, so let's try this. What do you see now?
I still see the like handwritten and the calculator and stuff like that.
I don't know why it's not letting me share. Huh. What about now?
I still see just the handwritten copy.
Oh my goodness, that is so infuriating. Okay.
Now I see Knowre.
Now you see Knowre?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, can you see my cursor moving?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, maybe it just took a minute to click over. So I'm going to, do you see a triangle now on your screen?
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know what you've been doing, and I'm sure Miss J, has she worked with you to kind of work through anything in Knowre or not?
No.
Okay, so I know that I've at least shared my screen a number of times, but let's just look at this one for instance. And it does go through and it says we have this triangle, PQH, and it's telling us it's 30, 60, 90. So I know I'm going to use that A radical 3, and 2A.
Mm-hmm.
And it says if HQ equals R, determine the length of the long leg, that's this guy right here, the QP, and the length of the hypotenuse. So what it's doing in the first couple questions is it's asking you to write the formula. So if this side, if this guy right here is 60, angle P has got to be how much?
It's gotta be 30.
Good. And then that makes sense because opposite angle P is one of something. So if on my paper, I was writing this down, opposite the 60-degree angle should be that something radical 3. And opposite the 90 should be that 2 of something. So because they're already telling us what letter to use, when I come down here to QP, I'm going to actually use my R, because that's what they're telling me what letter to use. So instead of how we keep using A's, they're telling us to use R. And then do you see this icon that my cursor's pointing at? That radical sign is what I have to plug in. And I connect radical 3. And there he goes. Now for this one, we end up with 2R. And again, we're using R because that's the one they told us to start with here. And hopefully, yay. Now, what I'd like for you to take a look at is most of us We got it right. We're not going to do too much more. We're just going to hurry up, push next. But please keep in mind what Knowre does really, really well is it explains what you just did. So let's go over here. I haven't looked at number 7. Number 7 has a 30, 60, 90, and it has all the angles labeled. So opposite the 30 is supposed to be my A. Now, what I want you to take a look at, and I know that it's a mirror image, but can you see up in the corner of your screen? Can you see what's supposed to be my picture, my face? Like I see your name, I don't see your face, but can you see my paper
Yeah,
here in the corner?
yeah, I can see like the work you're doing and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
So of course it's backwards because it's like looking in a mirror. But what I'm trying to show you is if I was doing this myself, I would actually write down on my own paper the problem where I would copy the triangle and I'm putting in the angle and I would put in the 12 and then I would do the same thing as if this was written work. I do it here first on my paper and then I would plug the answer in. So hopefully that's something that you're doing because it makes it a lot easier to do the A radical 3 and the 2A. And that way I can see, instead of just staring at a blank screen and getting frustrated, I'm actually working it out. And then you're going to do the steps. Circle the side with the formula and the value, and I find out, well, A is 12. So that means this bottom part right here, this DP, that guy's going to be 12 radical 3, because I just have to plug 12 in. And the side with 2A is going to be 2 times 12, or 24. And that way, when I come back to the question, find SD, I see it on my paper here, SD was 24. And I can plug that guy in here. So almost every Knowre question I do it on paper. Now it does give you the option to try again. Maybe you didn't do that as fast as you wanted to, or maybe you just felt, maybe I got lucky. So they do explain it here. I do want to also show something. What's your favorite number?
22.
I like you. That was my high school number. So this guy's really, really involved. I did this one last week. So if you really, really, really just want to, figure out how to do the problem, I did load it into Google Classroom. I did load it as a video. It's at the YouTube channel. But let's just say I can't do this. We're going to click down here to walk me through. Do you see this guy at the bottom?
Yeah.
Okay. He's very helpful, but the trick is we have to slow down and read it. And I will be honest, there's been times where I just want to go through it real quick. But take your time and read it. And it says you can think of the triangle GML as 2 triangles. And then it takes you through here and it wants to know SML. Is it a 45, 45, 90? Is it 30, 60, 90? Or is it none of the above? And we know that it's 45, 45, 90. So what it's trying to do is tell you which formula to use. So then it's going to explain that to you here. So then it's going to ask you, what is GMS? Well, we can see that it has a 60-degree angle, which means here's our 30-degree angle. So now what it's trying to do is get you to slow down to see that you're going to have another formula that you're going to want to apply. So we have our A radical 2 formula. And then we're going to end up using, in this case, the A radical 3, and 2A formula. And it's going to explain that to you there. And it's going to say that you need to determine the lengths in that first one, the 45, 45, 90, before you can do anything in the other triangle. So it's telling you which one to work on first. So in this one, we know that these two sides have to be the same. So we know that's A, and A radical 2. Can you take a guess what you think A is going to be if this side is A radical 2?
I think A is going to be, wait,
A radical 2. So what do you think A is going to be?
2. Would it be 2A?
So no. I want you to take a look. If we label our side,
Yeah.
SL is going to be labeled A. MS is going to be
Okay.
labeled A. ML is labeled A radical 2. So don't you already have radical 2 sitting here?
Yeah.
What's in front of it?
12.
Good. Now listen, when I say that this side is always in a pattern of A radical 2, it's already set up in that pattern. So it's already telling you what A is. It's right in front of it. So that means this side is 12 and this side is 12 because they're both A. So when I come down here, we're going to be able to punch in 12 and we're going to be able to see that we're. If I was wrong, it would go through and explain to me what I could do next. And doesn't just let you go on, it explains it anyway. So then it wants us to deal with using that side 12 to solve the other one. So do you see how 12 showed up here?
Yeah.
They filled it in for me. A, so one of something, that's something radical 2. So now they want us to figure out what GS is. Well, okay, on my paper, I could draw that out, but I know opposite the 30-degree angle is A. That the 60-degree angle is A radical 3. What did we just say A was?
12.
Good. So what is GS going to be if this side is A radical 3?
It'll be 12 radical 3.
Boom. So we're going to do 12 radical 3. Perfect. And again, it's going to explain why, but we got our 12 radical 3. So again, the whole time I'm writing all this down on paper so I don't lose anything. So now it wants to know, and oh look, I can scroll back up. If I know this is 12 radical 3, and I know this is 12, the question they want is, how long's the whole thing? Well, what would I have to do to figure out the whole length?
To figure out the whole length.
All the way across. What would I have to do mathematically to figure out if I took one little part, put it together with another little part, what mathematical operation am I going to have to do?
Would you divide it?
Nope. If I want to put two things together.
Add them?
Yep. We're going to add them. So I can look right back here and I know this was 12 radical 3 and we're going to add it to 12. So it would be like saying 12 radical 3 plus 12. So it's going to want me to plug it in here. So because of how it's labeled, let's see what happens. 12 radical 3. I'm going to arrow out of that. So I just write arrow out plus 12. Let's see if they'll accept that as an answer. And I got it right. Now I'm going to do something a little bit different because it's going to tell me to go to the original question again. So don't forget, this is what you saw, 12 radical 3 plus 12. Now let's go back and see if I can answer it. I'm going to do something different. I'm going to go 12 plus 12 radical 3. Those are the same two terms. Reverse them.
Mhm.
Okay. So let's see what happens. And I got it right either way. So one of the reasons I suggest sometimes doing that walk me through is it slows us down long enough to really concentrate on what we're doing. And in a lot of cases, maybe reminds us that writing things down isn't a bad idea. So what do you think? Did that help any today?
Yeah, it helped a lot.
Awesome. Are you okay with me posting this to the YouTube channel?
Yeah.
Perfect, because I'm sure other people have the same questions. So with that, I'm going to mute you again real quick. I want you to be aware that I did update all of our stuff in the gradebook. If for some reason you think something is off, please make sure that you email me and ask. I will tell you that we still have more than enough time to get in all of the no reassignments, 9-1, 9-2, 9-3, 9-4. We've got more than enough time. Reason I loaded the first two is because we had a benchmark, kind of a due date. If this was in school, it absolutely would have been late after yesterday. But I said it's just me trying to keep us on track. So I had people that were asking, how come I did all this work and it's not showing up in the grade book? And I'd have to answer to those people and say, I'm giving everybody the opportunity up until that day to get them in. So the minute I put everything in the grade book, I started getting emails. Why do I have a 0? I thought I still had time. And I explained, you do still have time. I said, we're trying to reach this due date so we don't get overwhelmed later by putting too much off. So what I was trying to do was meet everybody in between. Make sure people who know that they've done their work, I am paying attention and I have graded it and I know it's there, but I didn't want to load it too soon because at the other end, I've got people who are worried why they have 0s. So I kind of waited long enough to meet everything in the middle. So if for some reason you have not finished an assignment, keep working. You can hand it in absolutely, and it will pop up completed as long as the no reassignment is still live in the no re program. After it's no longer an assignment in the no re program, it's the due date in the program has expired, you still can do it. You just have to take a screenshot of it and send it to me. Easiest is always email if you have any questions, and I will do my best to answer those. Any questions left? Anything left, Siona, or you feel good today? Anything left?
I feel good today.
All right, so what's going to happen? I'm going to load our work that we did here today, as well as the other assignments that I did answers with. Here, you'll see that the answers are attached behind it, so if you're confused, I am going to put those answers with it. And we'll go from there. So check Google Classroom later for both the answers as well as any other directions, and use all of my papers to help you complete the work that you need to still complete. And if you have any questions, any requests, any comments, please email me and I will be more than happy to take care of them. Thank you so much for joining me today, Siona. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for helping me and answering my questions and all that.
Absolutely. I will tell you, I'm very, very proud of you. You know that already, but I can't say it enough. And I truly know how hard many of us are working. And I know that sometimes it's hard for us to look at a grading scale that's been adjusted and think that our hard work matters, but it doesn't matter what the grading scale is. We know how hard we push ourselves, and just know that I know how hard all of you, not just you, but all of my students push themselves, and to keep in mind that it won't always be this way. So what we don't want to do is ever lose focus, but we want to keep ourselves restful and peaceful too, because it could be very stressful during this time. I just want to make sure you know that I am very appreciative of all your hard work, and I'm very proud of all of your hard work. So keep it up. You're doing really well, and I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great rest of your afternoon. Go out and get some sunshine, smile a little bit, and I will make sure I talk to you, and hopefully more Friday. So I'll update everything on Google Classroom. I'll talk to you later. Thank you.
Bye, thank you.